Brad, let's move it to another interesting team, Cleveland Browns. Before I talk about them, once again, everybody, 2020 Fantasy Football Almanac and Draft Guide. Click the link below. Free updates throughout the offseason. Mathematically driven sleepers. History. You can look at the comments and everything. I have a history of calling sleepers. Lamar Jackson being one of them last year. James Conner the year before. It just goes deeper, everybody. You want to win your league, get that magazine. It's cheap, too. Amazon.com. Cleveland Browns, buddy. So, look, man, we were dialed into the Browns last year. To me, I've seen the Browns before. I saw the 2019 Browns before. They're called like the 1999 or 2000 Washington Redskins. You get all these people in from the offseason. You had Odell Beckham, Kareem Hunt. You get all these high-profile things. You don't improve your lines. Your offensive, defensive line. You don't get the meat and potatoes guys in there that really kind of win the games in the trenches. They were an exciting team, a fun storyline, but you and me, man, we were like our favorite bet of the year arguably was Tennessee to cover against Cleveland in week 1. I mean, that was the biggest punch to the face, punch to the nose, easy bet for us to make last year, and we cashed in on that. And I guess people that take our bets as gospel cashed in as well, but
that one was so obvious to me.
So obvious. And
Listen, I've been wrong about 1,000 things, but that one was just glaring me. It's just glaring in the face.
And the under on the season win total, obvious. Just like the Cincinnati Bengals to us is obvious this year. The under that we just talked about there at 7.5. Look, Cleveland last year, but that was last year. And so what happens in betting, Brad, is we're all a slave to what we've seen most recently. So last offseason, you get the hype train going. And like I said, as a follower of the Washington Redskins and in that period and Dan Snyder, I've seen that hype cycle enough that I knew they were going to implode, right? But now everybody's thinking, oh, Cleveland, that's not a team, blah, 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 blah. New coaching staff.
Okay.
More additions, right? I'll get to the additions in a little bit. They're not the 2019 Cleveland Browns. They're not riding that hype wave. And now people are down on them, so I'm seeing some value there. I think they're going to be an improved team. What do you think about the Cleveland Browns coming in, buddy?
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So interesting. It's almost hard for me to place it, to be honest. Let me take a second and think about it. I think...
I'm looking at your facial expressions.
Let me defer to you. Go ahead.
Okay. So... Look, Baker Mayfield, I've never been as high. I've always kind of felt, you can't say this is a won or a lost bet at this point because there's certainly argument to be made. Baker Mayfield had the better rookie season. I would argue, and you'd have to look at the stats, but as we've covered on the show in another segment, in another episode, I think Sam Darnold in New York, who is my favorite quarterback in the draft, had the better second year. He wasn't my guy, but I don't dislike Baker Mayfield. I don't come out like Colin Cowherd and hate on Baker Mayfield every now and then. He just wasn't my guy at the number 1 pick. I don't think that was the right pick. I think that general manager who's not even there anymore, placed a little bit too much emphasis on quarterback bravado than some of the intangibles and all that stuff. Well, Mayfield last year, 59.4% passing, regression. 22 touchdowns to 21 interceptions, regression. And what ended up happening, and again, another thing we called going into last year, Freddie Kitchens, look, he's not Jimmy Johnson of the Cowboys, when Jerry Jones hired him to take over for Tom Landry. I mean, Freddie Kitchens was not that guy, lost the locker room quickly. Pretty easy to see that the general manager and the organization was putting pressure on Freddie Kitchens to then give the franchise keys to Baker Mayfield. I said all along last year that the key for the Cleveland Browns to win games and hit their potential, and you can go back to the tape of us talking about this last year in 2019, was to run the offense through Nick Chubb, who I think is one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in terms of pure talent in the league. Run that offense through Chubb. Then you have play action down the field to Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. Makes it so easy for your young quarterback.
Yeah.
Your young quarterback, although statistically, he's not throwing the ball statistically. The game's running through Nick Chubb. It's still going to look like Baker Mayfield. Everything's on his shoulders. You just do so much more for that young quarterback with those weapons to run the ball.
I mean, I know you got the wide receivers, and they're the dynamic ones, and they're sparkly, and they're the sweet ones, and you want to have fun, and you want to see them catching bombs. Mm-hmm. But it's not time for that. It's not possible. We got to reel it in first. Figure it out from close in. Give it to Chubb. Base it around him.
Yep.
You're exactly right.
And this isn't the Patriots when they had Wes Welker and Randy Moss. And Tom Brady, a seasoned Tom Brady throwing for.
Yeah,
this
right,
was not
right.
that organization.
Seasoned.
This is, look, I mean, you can get those downfield passes, but you have to run. And so you look at Nick Chubb, and the first thing people do is pull up his stats from last year. And he had really nice stats. Look, 298 attempts, 1,494 yards, 5 yards per carry, which that's what Nick Chubb does, is 5 yards per carry. It's insane. 49 targets, 36, 270, second in the league in rushing, I think, behind Derrick Henry, who caught him the last week. So people who look at the stats and don't watch the games, they'll come back and be like, what are you talking about, Cleveland, blah, blah, blah. Look, man, you and me both, because Cleveland was such an interesting team, we watched a lot of Cleveland Browns last year. We're educated on Cleveland. They didn't give Chubb the ball in key situations. In key situations, like those 3rd and 1s, inexplicably call a bad passing play to Baker Mayfield. Situational football, and that's Freddie Kitchens' fault. That's not Baker Mayfield. That's on Freddie Kitchens and maybe the organization for putting them. But again, we have a new coaching staff this year. I love Stefansky coming over from Minnesota, a run-first team the last 2 years since Stefansky's been calling plays. They have Nick Chubb. They have Kareem Hunt, arguably the best 1-2 punch in football. This team will be a run. This team is going to do this season what I said Cleveland should have done last season. Baker Mayfield, you're going to see him throw for like 65%. You're going to see that touchdown interception ratio hover above maybe like 2.5 to 1, maybe even 3 to 1 this year. This team is going to be so much better because I think the coaching staff's going to do the right thing. That's my take on Cleveland.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I can give you that. Yeah.
Now, if they fall into the trap, like if Stefanski, does his thing, and the organization's still saying, "Hey, Baker Mayfield's selling tickets," and well, maybe not this year. We'll see if fans get in the stands, but he's the one. But his season, Baker Mayfield, was so disappointing last year. I don't think you're going to get that pressure. I don't like the ownership there, by the way.
True. Yeah, maybe true. There probably is not even close to the amount of pressure on them, and they could, they couldn't get any worse, right? There's no longer the letdown. So
the big question for me too is like, look, I saw this. I think the Haslams own the team, and he reminds me of a younger version of Daniel Snyder, which is not a compliment. And Dan Snyder stubbornly stuck to RG3 when they could have locked in Cousins at like crazy cheap over the course of 5 years. Like if the Haslams still think that Baker Mayfield is the best in terms of selling, sponsorship and all that stuff, and selling, corporate tickets and filling out the booths and all that stuff, this could be an issue, but I don't think that's going to be the issue this year, man. I think that they're going to do what they should have done last year. I think we're going to see Odell Beckham, who's going to be healthier this year. I think we're going to see some of that air it out, and Baker Mayfield to have less attempts. I think the combination of Chubb and Hunt will have more attempts rushing. You'll see that call play percentage get back closer to 50-50. Especially situationally. The red zone percentage is going to be better. You have Austin Hooper coming over from Atlanta at tight end, in addition to David Njoku also getting healthy. This team is going to be better. So let me hit you with the over-under, Brad. 8.5 wins for Cleveland this year.
Can you remind me what they had last year's wins? Was it 7?
I feel like there were 7. What were they? I'm looking at 6 and 10. So they're hovered. Okay,
they were 6 and 10, and the over/under for this year is 8.5.
8.5. So to cover, they have to have a swing of +3 in terms of wins.
Okay, so I'm going to still go under, but I think they can win 8 games and have it actually be a great season. And I think that they win 8 games, and next year's off season we start picking them to really hit their stride.
I agree.
That's optimistic and hopeful.
I agree. So last year, what we said was, look, we'll see what happens with Freddie Kitchens. This isn't a playoff team. This is a team that if they do everything the right way, 2020 would be the start of their window. But I think Freddie Kitchens and the organization bungled it so poorly last year that I'm delaying that. I'm going to say that they are going to do the right things this year, which I said they wouldn't last year. That was my lean. I think they will do the right things this year. They will, redistribute. They'll be better situationally. They're going to be a better team, period. But I think 8-8, this division, man, is so tough to play in. I think the NFC West is the best. I think AFC North, top to bottom, is right behind them. I think 8-8 is a great season for them. I think next year the playoff window starts going. And I'll say this, if the Browns played in the NFC East, if they played in the AFC South, I think that they would easily be a 9-win team and a team to cover. but I don't like the division they play in. I think they'll have a tough 8-8 team. They're going to be a pain in the butt to play all season long. They're going to be playing tough football. Would it shock me if they go 9-7? No. I'm not going to be firm on that bet. I'm not going to put my money on it, but I'm going under with you, Brad, which is interesting because top to bottom so far, we're talking about how much we love this division. We're on the under on every team so far, both of us.
Yeah, right. That is wild.